Hey everyone, we're happy to announce the release of our updated Unreal Live plugin workflow for Rokoko Studio. So in order to make the workflow uniform across all the different versions of Unreal Engine, we had to change up the process just a little bit. In this video, we'll be covering the process of setting up a custom character to live stream your Rokoko mocap to either with or without facial motion capture, as well as the process for metahumans specifically, which have a slightly different workflow. You can also download that free Metahuman project file if you want to in the description below. Let's jump into it. You can now find the updated Rokoko plugin for 4.26 and 4.27 on the Epic Marketplace. If you already had the Rokoko plugin installed for 4.26, you can update the plugin by navigating to Installed Plugins under the 4.26 engine and hitting the Update button. A note about this, however, is that by updating the plugin for 4.26, you'll be breaking the blueprints in any projects that use the old version of the plugin for 4.26. However, you can adapt your blueprints to the workflow we're about to go through, and your project should be up and running again in no time. There's also an updated link in the description below for a folder of Rokoko bone maps and the control rig T-pose asset for metahumans, which can come in handy. So I would recommend downloading that folder if you're working with metahumans, Paragon skeletons, DAZ 3D skeletons, Character Creator 3, or Vroid skeletons. With all that said, let's now open up a new project and go through the workflow. We'll be working in Unreal 4.27, but this is the same workflow you'll need to follow in 4.26 as well. First thing we'll do in a new project is make sure our Rokoko plugin is actually enabled. We'll go to Edit, Plugins, and then search for Rokoko. After enabling the plugin, you'll be prompted to restart the project. Once the project is opened back up, we're going to drag in that bone maps folder with all of our different bone maps, and you can find the download for this folder in the description below. To drag in the folder, you'll navigate to the content folder of your project and then drop the bone maps in there. It will then appear in your project. So first we're going to take a look at getting the live plugin working with a custom model from DAZ 3D. I'll create a new folder for my character. This character is named Felton, so I'll just call it Felton. And then when I'm importing, I want to make sure that this skeleton dropdown is clear and empty. And I also want to make sure to tick the Use T0 as ref pose and import morph targets. And then I'll hit Import All. I chose this Muppet model because it's rigged with the Apple ARKit blend shapes, which will allow us to stream live facial mocap as well as body mocap to the model. However, if you're using a model without facial mocap, you can still follow the workflow we're about to run through. You can just ignore the facial mocap bits. So after we've imported the model, you can see that we have the model mesh as well as the skeleton. We'll right click on the skeleton and then go to Create Anim Blueprint. Once I open up the blueprint, we will lay down a Rokoko body pose node and a Rokoko face pose node, and I'll wire them all together. Next, we need to create 3 variables. I'll start by creating a new variable and naming it Rokoko actor name. Then I will change the variable type to name. I will drag this variable into my scene and select Get Rokoko actor name. And then I'll wire that into the Rokoko actor name pins on my nodes. Next, we'll create 2 more variables called Rokoko bone map and Rokoko face map. For the bone map, I'll change the variable type to a Rokoko body map data class reference. Then I'll change the face map to Rokoko face map data class reference. And I'll drag them into my scene, selecting get for both. And then wire the body map data into the body pose node and the face map data into the face pose node. So now we have our assembled blueprint, but we still need to make some changes to these nodes. I'll hit compile, save, and now some new options will appear for us. These drop downs for actor name, bone map, and face map. Again, you won't see these options until you compile and save this blueprint. The Rokoko actor name we're just going to leave blank, and we'll deal with that in a few minutes. However, we will need to assign a bone map and face map for these other two options. If you click the bone map dropdown, you can see we have all these pre-made bone maps from that bone map folder that we added to our project earlier. However, what if you have a character whose skeleton isn't from DAZ or Metahuman or one of these pre-made options? In that case, you're going to need to create a custom bone map. To do that, you'll go back to the content browser. You will right-click and add blueprint class. Here you're going to search for Rokoko and you'll select a Rokoko body map data. You can rename this whatever you want and then open it up. Here you'll see a bunch of fields that need to be filled out so that they correspond to the bones in your custom character. So the way that I usually do this is to just go to my character and open up their skeleton. And then I will drag the bone map out and kind of put it right next to my skeleton so that I can have easy access to both. And now we just want to be matching these all up. So hip is actually already correct, hip, right? But the next one is stomach, and this refers to the first spine bone of your character. So in this case, it's actually called abdomen lower. So what I do is I right click on abdomen lower, copy selected bone names, and then I can just paste it right in here. Then we have the next spine bone, which we want to be the kind of upper, the last bone in the spine chain for our character. So in this case, it's not abdomen upper, it's not chest lower, it's chest upper. If you select it, you can kind of tell which one that is. So I'm going to copy this and paste it in. I will find the neck, in this case, neck lower. Head is already correct. As you can see here, it's just head. And then let's look at the arms. And something to note about the arms is that you always want to avoid twist bones, which DAZ 3D characters have, but not all characters have. However, if your character does have twist bones, just use the bend bones instead. So in this case, I would take the left collar, which is the left shoulder here. Then I'll take left shoulder bend, which is that upper arm bone. I'll take left forearm bend, which is the forearm bone. And then we have the hand, and I'm just avoiding those twist bones, as you can see. And then the last thing that I'll mention is that when you're inputting the finger joints, we'll just scroll down here to the finger joints, you always want to avoid the metacarpal bones. So we're just going to do the thumb first. We'll take thumb 1, thumb 2, and thumb 3. And then you always leave this tip bone blank. So if I actually select this, delete it, it'll just leave it as none. And then for the proximal index finger bone, we're just going to choose index 1, not carpal 1, index 1. And we'll paste that in, copy and paste, copy and paste, and delete that tip. And so now you can go through and fill out the rest of that bone map, and you'll have something that corresponds to your character's skeleton. So you might need to experiment a little with this to find the correct bones in your bone map, but if you have any questions about this process, please hit up the Rokoko Discord to get help, or leave a comment below. So in this case, because Felton is a DAZ 3D character, we don't need to create a new bone map because I've already provided one in that bone maps folder that we added earlier. If we jump back to our body blueprint, we can add our DAZ 3D bone map, hit apply, and then hit compile and save. If you ever go through this process and the bone map disappears after selecting it, you might just need to go to that bone map asset itself, compile and save it, and then it should appear when in that dropdown. Now for the face map, because I know this character uses the Apple AR kit, we can just assign the face map in the Rokoko bone map folder. However, if you have custom blend shapes, then you can create your own face map by creating a new blueprint class, selecting Rokoko face map, and then assigning custom blend shape names. This is a new feature of the updated workflow, which is really cool if you aren't working with Apple ARKit blend shapes. Okay, so we're almost done with the body blueprint, but the next thing we need to do is fix this starting pose. Our character is currently in an A pose, and we need our character to be in a T pose to get our mocap streaming correctly. So there are two ways to do this. We could just create transform bone nodes in our blueprint here, select the upper arm bones, go to rotation, select add to existing, and then if we compile and save, we can make changes right here in the blueprint to the orientation of the arms. However, if there were a lot of changes we needed to make to pose our skeleton, we might want to create a pose asset. To do this, we'd navigate to our skeleton of the character, and then make all the necessary changes to the bones in here. To get the best results, your character should be in a T pose, and the hands should be posed like this, with the thumbs lying alongside the fingers. I will make all the changes to my character that I want, and then I'll go to Create Asset, Pose Asset, Current Pose. I will save that pose. I'll just save it in the upper level of the content folder. And I'll take note of the pose name. In this case, it's pose_0. Then I'll go and I'll drag that new pose asset into my blueprint. Once I have, I'll right click on the asset and hit Convert to Pose by Name. Then I can select the asset and input that pose_0 name in the pose name. When I wire it into my input pose and compile, our character will snap to our new pose. Okay, so now we'll jump back to our characters folder and we're going to create a new actor blueprint class. We'll open it up and then we'll go to the event graph and we will add component skeletal mesh. We'll then drag that skeletal mesh into our scene, and from this pin, we will drag out and select a Get Anim Instance node. Then from that return value pin, we will drag it out and select a Cast To node, and we'll search for the animation blueprint we built for our character. We'll connect our Event Begin Play node to that Cast To node, and then finally we'll drag out from the pin in the Cast To node and search for a Set Rokoko Actor Name node. We'll connect it all up, and we'll enter in the actor profile name that we're using in Rokoko Studio. In this case, it's just my name, Sam. Then we'll hit compile and save. And now we can drag our actor into the scene. Once we do, we'll select that skeletal mesh component and select our Felton character. We'll also choose the Felton blueprint that we created. At this point, the last thing we need to do is add a Rokoko receiver to the scene, and then we can jump into Rokoko Studio. So here we are in Rokoko Studio, and I'm just going to be streaming one of the demo assets into Unreal. So this could also be a live mocap suit if you were doing VTubing, for instance, or you wanted to do virtual production, but the workflow is the same for streaming a live suit as for streaming a pre-recorded animation. The important thing here is to note that our actor profile name is Sam, and it matches what we inputted back on the blueprint for our character in Unreal. To enable the live streaming plugin for Unreal, we want to go to Start Live Stream, and then turn on the Unreal Engine module. As soon as you do, you can see the port that you'll be streaming to. In this case, it's the default 14045, but you can also change this port number if you need to by clicking on the gear icon. We need to make sure the port number on the Rokoko receiver matches the one we were using in Rokoko Studio. Again, in this case, it's just 14045. And to get our mocap to our character, we'll go and open up the Live Link panel, and we will add our Rokoko Studio source. Now, if you hit play, there you go. Everything is streaming to our character. And again, if you aren't using facial motion capture, you can still use the same workflow and you just ignore the bits about the facial mocap, as you won't need those nodes for your workflow. Okay, so now that we've gone through the process of setting up a custom character for mocap streaming, let's run through how to set up a Metahuman. So this Metahuman project file will be available to download in the description below, all completely already set up, so feel free to grab that and use it in whatever way that you wish. So we're going to start a new project, and I'm going to go through the steps that we did in the previous workflow. We're just going to add our Rokoko plugin, make sure it's turned on, and then we'll add that bone maps folder into the content folder of our project, and we will add our Metahuman from Quixel. One of the most important assets in that bone maps folder is the Metahuman T-Pose control rig asset. But until you add a Metahuman to your project, you may not be able to see it in that folder. Just something to be aware of, it is there, but you just might not be able to see it until you actually add a Metahuman and restart your project. Okay, we got everything added, and so now we'll navigate to our Metahuman blueprint, and we will open it up. In this case, it's a Metahuman named Natalia. First, I'm just going to select the LOD sync, and I'm going to set the LOD to 0, or the highest quality. You don't have to do this, but I just want our Metahuman to not have a dynamic level of detail for this project. I'll compile, save, and then I'll select the body in the hierarchy, and double-click the skeletal mesh. Then I'll select Blueprint, and it will automatically open up in the event graph, so we want to go down and open the animation graph. I'm going to make a little space at the start of the node chain after the control rig, and then I will add a Rokoko body pose node. Remember, you need to have enabled the Rokoko plugin and restarted in order to have access to this node. Next, we're going to create a variable, and we'll name it Rokoko actor name. I'll change the variable type to name, and then I will drag it into the graph and select Get Rokoko Actor Name. I'll connect this to our Rokoko Body Pose node, and then I'll create another variable. I'm going to name this variable Rokoko Bone Map, and I'll change the variable type to Rokoko Body Map Data class reference. Then I'll drag it into the graph and select Get again. I'll wire that into the Body Pose node, and then I'll hit Compile and Save. And when I do, now we have a couple more options that show up. Now when I select the Rokoko Body Pose node, I can add the Metahuman Bone Map. This is one of those assets in that Bone Maps folder that we downloaded and added earlier. Make sure to hit Apply after you select the bone map, and then compile and save. If the bone map is disappearing when you compile, you might just need to actually open up that bone map asset and compile and save it. In order to get our Metahuman into a T-pose, we'll select the Control Rig node, and then add the Metahuman T-pose asset. Compile and save, and then we have our Metahuman in a T-pose. Again, if that T-pose asset is disappearing when you compile and save, you may need to just go to the actual T-pose asset in the Bone Maps folder, open it up, and compile it and save it. So that's all we need to do in this blueprint. And remember, we are leaving the actor name blank here. So now, if we jump back to the main Metahuman blueprint, I'm going to make a small change to the face blueprint. I'll select the face, and then double click the mesh. And then we'll go to the face blueprint. Again, it's going to open up in the event graph, and we want to go to the animation graph. So we're going to add a modify curve node in between the live link pose and the ARKit mapping pose nodes. When working with the ARKit facial motion capture, the metahumans have an annoying tendency to never fully shut their lips, even when their mouths are closed. So to fix this, we're going to right click on the animation pose and select Add Curve Pin. We want to add a mouth shrug lower pin. And we're going to set this to 0.5 or something. Then when we hit compile, you'll see that the lower lip slightly adjusts upwards. Save it, and then we can go back to the main Metahuman blueprint. So we're going to add a few nodes right after the event begin play. We'll drag in the body, and then from that we'll attach a getAnim instance node. From there we'll add a cast2 node, and we'll select the skeletal mesh our Metahuman is using. In this case, it's the female medium normal weight blueprint. I'm also going to attach the event begin play to that node. And then I will drag out from the blue pin on our cast2 node and search for set Rokoko actor name. I'll connect it up to the cast2 node, and then also connect it to the get console node. And here I'm going to add the actor name, or the actor profile name that I'm using in Rokoko Studio. In this case, it's just my name, Sam. So at this point, we are done changing up the blueprints, and we can add our Metahuman to the scene. Once it's in, I'm going to select the body mesh on our Metahuman and make sure the animation mode is set to animation blueprint and not use animation asset. I also want to make sure the blueprint I'm using is the same blueprint that we set up for our Metahuman body. In this case, it's that female medium normal weight blueprint. We also want to do the same for our torso, legs, and feet. So now we just want to make sure that we have a Rokoko receiver in the scene, and then we can jump back into Rokoko Studio. Again, I'm still just going to be using a pre-recorded asset, but the workflow is the same if you're using a live suit. All that matters is that your actor profile name matches the one on that main Metahuman blueprint, and that you have the Unreal live streaming module turned on. In this case, we're still streaming to port 14045, so if we jump back to Unreal, we can make sure that on our Rokoko receiver, it matches that port number. When it matches, we can turn on our live link, and we will add a Rokoko Studio source. Finally, if we select our Metahuman, we can add our face under the live link face subject. And now, if you hit play, there you go. Everything is working and we are streaming our mocap live to our Metahuman in Unreal Engine. So as I said before, you can download this project file in the description below and get it working, and the only thing that you'll need to do is open up that main Metahuman blueprint and change the actor name to the one that you're using in Rokoko Studio. It's probably not going to be Sam unless you are using the actor profile name Sam as well. So there you go. We went through how to set up a custom character for streaming live motion capture in Unreal Engine, and we also went through the process of setting up a Metahuman. If you have any questions about this, please leave a comment down below, or you can go and hit up our Rokoko Discord, where we have a great community that will be able to help you out. Thanks so much for watching, and soon we'll have a tutorial that's focused on the Unreal Engine 5 alpha. Bye bye.